Today, this miracle still exists until this day. And we know this, and we can testify for that through what? The signs of the Day of Judgment. And we see that. We spoke about that before, and we're going to talk about it in the future, inshallah, as we discuss the subject of the Day of Judgment. So we see the Prophet ﷺ, he told us 1400 years ago about that people, the shepherds, the desert people will be competing and fighting for lofty and high buildings like skyscrapers. And this is happening in the Gulf areas, happening even here in Texas, happening actually in many places. So you can see that these miracles are happening, and the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that more than 1400 years ago. Number two, knowing the language of animals. Can you tell me any prophet that knew the language of animals, Jama'ah? Sulaiman alayhi salam. Sulaiman was able even to hear what? The ant. He could hear them, and he could speak to them, and he spoke with other animals. He knew languages. Perhaps some of us today might say, but yeah, Sheikh, today scholars and scientists, they know how to communicate with animals. So they can study the different sounds, and then they make sense of them, and they start using them against the animals. And it's true, they do that actually. But they cannot themselves speak that language with these animals. And here Sulaiman was able to speak the language of many of these animals, himself alayhi salatu wasalam. And there was a hadith in Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he heard the grievance of a camel, and he responded to it, salawatullahi wa salam alayhi. Number three, knowing the thoughts and plottings of others. How could this happen? For example, you sitting there, if I tell you, I know what you're thinking. And instead you're thinking about 1, 2, 3, you would just be surprised by that thought. Where are you getting that from? There's no way I can have access to your mind. I cannot read your mind or what's there in your heart unless there's some way of doing that, coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet ﷺ, he had some of these actually encounters. Some of these encounters were with Abu Sufyan. When Abu Sufyan first embraced Islam, is the beginning of when the Prophet was still in Mecca, the first day or maybe second day or something like that. As he was making tawaf, Abu Sufyan was watching. And the Prophet ﷺ actually, he said that Abu Sufyan was thinking about the Prophet ﷺ in that moment. Now that he's walking and he's making tawaf, feeling that he's safe, who's protecting him from me? He says, now what if I go and then I attack him, maybe I just finish him and finish the whole episode of Muhammad and so on from the life of the people of Mecca. So the Prophet ﷺ quietly, he came directly to Abu Sufyan and he struck on his chest and he said to him, إِذَنْ يُخْزِيكَ اللَّهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will disgrace you. So Abu Sufyan was surprised. How could this happen? Like he did not even utter any word. It just was a thought in his mind. And here's the Prophet ﷺ coming to him saying, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will disgrace you. I mean, if you try, that's what happened to you. So that was actually very surprising to him. And there was another incident when one of the people of Mecca, he wished that he could go and kill Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he plotted with some of the people of Mecca that they take care of his own family and they will make them rich and so on. He will go and finish it. So the man comes to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, claiming that he's coming to ransom some of the people there. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Tell me the truth." He says, "No, this is where I came from." So the Prophet ﷺ said, "No, you're not telling the truth. You came here for this reason." And he gave him that exact conversation he had with the people of Mecca. And the man, he says, "Ashhadu annaka Rasulullah." Because there is no way anyone can know about it except that it's coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, just I was myself, and that very few number of people who were discussing this matter actually secretly. So how could you know about that unless you are a messenger of Allah? So the Prophet ﷺ was given that power of knowing some of the thoughts of people from around him, salawatullah wa salam alayhi. And finally here, as part of the knowledge is the Quran itself. The Quran is full with knowledge from the beginning until the Day of Judgment. If you talk about the knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in the Quran at the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, it's amazing. So the people of Mecca, they start learning so many things from the past and from the future. Then generation after generation, the amount of ilm and knowledge that inspired the Muslim ummah from the early days, a group of Bedouins from the desert, nomads, the Quran made them a powerful nation because of the knowledge that it provided them and that empowered them with. In addition to that, today living in the 21st century, we are still taking from the spring of the Quran, the knowledge basically, the oasis of the Quran, the oasis of knowledge that comes from the Quran, such as what they call them today, the new discoveries in science, and we have access to this in the Quran, the miraculous verses in the Quran, that told about the future phenomena of our time, like the creation of the mountains, the formation of the clouds, and the sunsets and the sunrise, and the formation of the earth. Everything, subhanAllah, today in this age we have all these now new knowledge that come into our in our time, and it has been mentioned in the Quran back actually more than 1400 years ago. So this is the first sign of the miracles. The second one, the might and power. Some of these miracles that Allah has given the Anbiya will be actually so powerful. I mean, it's not going to have the power of ilm and knowledge itself, but it's going to be physically powerful. Like what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Musa alayhi salam, وَإِذْ اسْتَسْقَى مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ فَقُلْ نَضْرِبْ بِعَصَاكَ الْحَجَرَ فَانْفَجَرَتْ مِنْهُ اثْنَتَا عَشْرَةَ عَيْنًا. Musa alayhi salam, he was traveling with his people. His people, they sought water, they couldn't find any water. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he asked Allah Azza to provide them water. And Allah Azza told him, just strike that stone, that rock, and 12 springs of water will come out. Now can you imagine? You have a solid rock, and you just hit it with a staff, and 12 different springs will gush out in different directions to provide for different people. It's not one, it's not two, 12. اثنتا عشرة عينا. So you have 12 of these water springs will come out, gushing out for their service. That's by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the surah that we recited in Surah Al-Maghrib, Surah Taha, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Musa alayhi salam. قال وما تلك بيمينك يا موسى. What do you have in your hand? So Musa, he knew what was that exactly, and Allah knew what was that in the hand of Musa alayhi salam. But he wanted to attract the attention of Musa to something he had for so long in his hand, and he knew that it was nothing but a staff, a stick, dead wood basically. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ألق ما في يمينك. Just throw it. And he threw that staff, and it turned into what? A huge snake. And then he asked him to put his hand in his bosom, in his pocket. So he did. And when he pulled it out, it was white and bright. Musa alayhi salam was dark skinned. So when he took his hand out, it was bright and was actually white. What could that be? It could be one of two things, whether it's a magic or a miracle. And magic cannot do that because the magicians, they know that they could not reach that level of sophistication. So there is no other way of doing this except through a miracle from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some of the miracles that Allah has given some of the Anbiya, that shows might and power. Musa turned his staff into a snake. Isa alayhi salam, he brought the dead back to life. So this is a very powerful miracle. I mean, when someone is dead, how can you bring someone who died back to life? Unless by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that only happens by the will of Allah azza wa jal. And only Isa alayhi salam, Al-Anbiya, Isa alayhi salam, was able to bring that dead person back to life. Also, he was even able to create, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by forming from clay, forming birds, breathing it, and by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it would fly. So that's a very powerful actually, a miracle. Saleh, his people, they demanded that he brings out for them a camel from a stone, from the rock, from the mountain. They didn't really believe that Saleh could do that. When he asked him, he said, what do you ask of me? What exactly do you ask of me to believe? They said to him, if you can bring a camel out of this rock, we'll believe in you. And I'm sure that when they said that, they were just mocking him. They couldn't believe they could do that. But by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, behold, that camel comes out from that stone. Some of them believed, but the majority, they insisted and they resisted to believe in him, alayhi salatu wassalam. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah Al-Shamsi wal-Duhaha, that إِذٍ بَعَثَ أَشْقَاهَا فَقَالَ لَهُمْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ ناقة الله وسقياها. Means that the Ashqaha, the one who wanted to kill that camel, he just said he went and he did that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed them because of this belief in these messages. Sulaiman alayhi salam, he was able to control al-rih, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the wind. He could control it to go and blow in different directions by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are many other Anbiya who had very, very powerful miracles that was so visible. People, they felt the traces and the effect of these miracles in front of them and for so long. And specifically Musa alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him many, many signs, by the way, many miracles. And specifically since the time of Musa was times of magic, many of these miracles would resemble that, but these are miracles. And of these miracles, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned 9 of them in Surah Al-A'raf. One of these miracles is the blood. Every time they try to approach the water, it turns into blood in their hands. So can you imagine every time you try to drink water it turns into red and blood? It's disgusting. And for them, they couldn't live with that. Also, frogs were jumping all over the place. It's a very annoying thing for them. Grasshoppers and different actually.